Virtual RC Racing, the Inside Story. Episode 14, Starting All Over Again. My name is Peter Barefoots. With the first 13 episodes behind me, it's now on to the second half of my Inside Stories. Starting all over again. Here we are, end of 2005. No longer involved in the Serpent business, a great VRC 3.5 kickoff with Kyosho, Horizon Hobbies, and the VRC dealers. A bright future ahead of us, right? But I had already drawn the conclusion that VRC version 3.5 was not really the software platform which we could use to expand VRC into a lasting future. It was an endpoint and the beginning of a new adventure at the same time. Let me explain. The gaming industry was developing at an exponential rate, and so did computers, monitors, and graphics cards. My uneducated guess was that the VRC v3.5 platform could perhaps last for another 2 or 3 years before it would become totally obsolete. We needed something completely new, I felt, and fast, and I needed a new development team for V4. Lothar had already indicated to me that he would shift his attention away from VRC and focus on his own core business, developing hardware solutions for the electronics industry. He had spent a good part of the past 5 years on VRC and would no longer have time to dedicate to VRC. Lothar's role changed from game architect and lead programmer to a VRC consultant. After all, he had built up a lot of knowledge about VRC and had developed and implemented several unique structures and software solutions for VRC, which could probably be carried over to V4. So the VRC V4 project surely needed a new game architect and lead programmer. After retiring from Serpent, the new owners, Michael Sullivan and Ronald Barr, had already indicated that they were not going to continue the MyTSN portal. What a pity. That meant also goodbye to the Slovak team who had done such a terrific job for Serpent since 1994. Could they perhaps get involved in game development? Marek Straka and his team had already built the V3 portal, creating database structures for memberships, event results, etc. But Marek, nor Lubo, nor Tomas had any experience with actual game development. I knew they were very smart software developers, each with their own expertise, but developing a racing sim? I had long discussions with Marek, who was the lead man of the Slovak team. He had employed Lubo and Tomas in his company named Advanced. Marek convinced me that we would surely have to develop our own 3D graphics engine. Really? Why that was necessary was beyond me, but Marek convinced me that we had no other option than to develop this ourselves. The V3 graphics engine was way too limited. Building a 3D graphics engine from scratch, from zero? Such specialized software technology, you would need somebody with decent knowledge of and experience with modern graphics engines and hardware, right? And as VRC v4 was going to be developed to run exclusively on the Microsoft Windows platform, also a good understanding of the Microsoft's DirectX protocols, which handles tasks related to 3D game programming, was required. Marek introduced me to Miro, who he knew from Trenčín University. He thought he was the perfect guy for this job. His nickname was Hombre. He had built a simple graphics engine before, but nothing like what we needed for V4. I trusted Marek's recommendation, and he proved me right. So we had the 4 Slovaks, Todd Wasson to continue developing the physics engine, and Tony West as 3D and graphics artist, both of them on VRC since 2000 and already committed to V4. My job for V4 had changed too. I was going to be much more involved in coordinating and supervising the project, and as before, writing the VRC V4 script, the so-called functional design. Really? Thinking in advance of every detail in V4. Functionality, structures, process flows, graphical user interface layout and functionality. Never done anything like that before. Also for me, this was getting serious now. I had given myself a new full-time job, and much more than that. Based on my 30-plus years of RC racing and manufacturing experience, I started laying out all my ideas which I would like to see implemented in V4. And that was quite a list. Interactive 3D pit table interface, pit table commercial objects, commercial dynamic track banners, 10-car multiplayer mode, replay opponents, true 3D experience with dynamic shadow and lighting, new event structures, new electric and off-road classes, interactive graphical user interface, and game and GUI management tools, which included GUI editor, component editor, track editor, and game publishing tools. This list was, of course, far from complete, but this is what I could think of at the time. It was a very ambitious set of ideas, and the list would surely grow over time, as it always does. In software development, they call that feature creep, an ongoing expansion of new ideas to be implemented on top of the original plan. It's a natural thing. You simply can't think of everything on beforehand. And of course, during the development process, your insights and ideas change all the time. Feature creep is the game architect's nightmare, and even more so for the software development manager who is committed to timelines, etc. No wonder that the estimated 2 years were stretched to over 6 years. I soon came to realize that I was solely responsible for this feature creep, but as I was also paying the bill. Who cares? 2 years of development cost wasn't too bad. Could handle that. No problem. But 6 years. In 2006, my son Tim joined the team after he had finished university as a data scientist. His role was to oversee software development and feature creep and to report to me. In 2008, Rado Fusic joined the team. His job was developing the V4 graphical user interface and assisting Tony and me how to use the GUI editor to create all the in-game menus. We now had a 9-man team to work full-time on V4, plus Lothar as consultant, and Marek Simon partially involved in encryption and server security, which was of course a very important precondition for a healthy and secure VRC V4 business environment. Now on to the V4 development platform. One of the first things Marek started to work on was the required development platform for the whole team, and especially Tony, Todd, and me, to be able to develop game content, tracks, cars, components, and graphical user interface or GUI before encryption. 3 platforms were set up: root, test, and live, each with its own server. This structure is maintained till today. Root is for internal use, test for beta testing, and live is the public version. Root is used to develop and test unencrypted content, tracks, cars, components, and the graphical user interface, which gives us the flexibility to develop independent of each other. Once a track, component, or GUI element is thoroughly tested on root level, all files are then committed to the central server and automatically synchronized with all other team members. Test is used to publish the content created in root, and in the publishing process the content is being encrypted. Test has its own test website, which is used to communicate with the beta testers through the test forum structure. At a later stage, we invited VRC members to become beta tester to provide test feedback in dedicated forums. The Slovak team also developed a very efficient web-based communication platform where we could post new items for discussion and select who to involve in the discussion. This advanced issue tracker platform was essential for the project to have an efficient and transparent environment to communicate and share information. Don't forget, we had the software team working from Slovakia, Todd from Minnesota in the USA, Tony from Spain, later Thailand, and me and Tim from the Netherlands. I was not at all involved in this development platform. I can only say that once we got working together on this project, I realized more and more that this developing platform was crucial for the success of developing V4. Although we had come a long way with version 3.5, I wanted V4 to be as realistic as possible, in graphics, in feeling, everything. But of course, not knowing what it would take to get there. Well, I would soon find out. Ever heard of the uncanny valley principle and curious what it has to do with V4? Well, I didn't, but found out quickly. I'll explain. That's next. Make sure to subscribe to the Inside Story playlist on YouTube so you don't miss an episode. Thank you for watching.